The hot seat in the new year is Dr. Nandini Munkur, a developmental pediatrician, pediatrician, eh? pediatrician based in Bangalore with specialization in developmental disorder in young children. She wears several hats. She is the director of CCDD, Center for Child Development and Disabilities, director of International Children's Peace Council, director of Children's Art Foundation, executive member of Child's Right Commission Bangalore, founder member of Raheen, an NGO, etc., etc. In short, she is an authority on issues concerning children. Are we equipping our children to face life's challenges? Are we able to handle the stress that our children go through? Do we understand our children's needs? Let me, on your behalf, post these and related questions to the esteemed guest. Welcome, Dr. Nandini.
Thank you so much, Mr. Balram.
Dr. Nandini, today's children go through a lot of stress. Stress due to parents' expectations, stress due to undue pressure on them to perform well in examinations, stress due to socio-emotional problems and whatnot. Who do you think is to blame? Parents, schools, education department, or the highly competitive world?
Well, Mr. Balram, each one of them have a role in this. What we really have to understand is this young, vulnerable child who is coming into this world requires a lot of adult support to bloom and grow, physically, mentally, and socially. And at every age, the child comes with certain amount of capabilities. And if we had programs, or if we have, we are able to adapt our programs to the children at that age, which they are capable of doing, I think we really give them a good time in life to grow up. But if we have what we call as developmentally appropriate issues, for example, if I tell you a 2-year-old child will naturally throw temper tantrums, which, because of not being able to communicate with the languages, and they haven't developed that kind of language to communicate, so they will. But if a child at 5 or 6 years throws tantrums, it's not acceptable. And if a 10 or 11 years children become oppositional defiant behavior, we have to treat them as friends, because at that time they are not going to listen to what we are going to say. So if we understand children according to ages, that will be most appropriate. And that's what is not happening. Whether our school, for example, let's talk about parents. Parents, I've done several studies. Indian parenting is very good for very young children, because physically we offer a lot of love to them when they're very young. But the minute they turn 2 or 3, we really don't know how to interact with them. We don't speak to our children very much. This I find across various communities. People say, what do I speak to my children? They say, parents tell me. I say, no, play with them, laugh with them, jump with them. But that is somehow we are inhibited in that as parents. I don't know why. So we need to get over these inhibitions and get to treat children and become a child with them at that age. When they get to be a little older, 5 to 6, we should know how to set limits, which are acceptable limits, which are not acceptable limits. A little bit of discipline has to come in, but we become very authoritarian. We only tell them, do this, don't do this, sit here, go here, time, music, we sort of program them like a robot, which is also not a very good thing to do. And finally, when they become teenagers, we really have lost communication with them. Parents today, many teenagers tell me, what do my parents know about me? They say, study well, eat well, we provide them. But are we into their emotional life? Do we know what their friends are? Do we know what we are thinking? How do we interact with them? Is our issues, I think, which is really
So, doctor, each stage we have to act differently.
Yes. So we have to... We have to wear a different hat at every stage of the child's life. And of course, coupled with, if that's the parents, let's talk about school.
That's what I wanted to come to you. For children, how stressful is schooling?
Very stressful in our country. I think because our expectations in schools is just information, reeling out information. At a young age of 1 year, children get homework. They're giving spellings where they don't even know 3-letter, 4-letter words in English. English now being a language where everybody wants to learn. Let me focus on that. Even I was doing a rural program, children want to. Very good. I'm happy that they want to learn. But do we have an appropriate curriculum to teach them? We are given words which they are just asked to by heart and reproduce. Now, by hearting, the brain also has limited capacity to by heart. Since we don't know how to do it any other way, we start failing when they're third, fourth standard, spelling errors, the writing, and they are not very creative writers because our emphasis is more on how do you write a spelling correctly than how we have written a thought correctly, unlike the West. The younger children are allowed to express creatively, and that forms them to think ahead, creative thinking. But here we are asked to just write an answer to a question. This is extremely stressful to the child because a child is a blooming child who is learning about the world. It wants to learn and speak and, grow. And here we restrict it. And that is...
Doctor, I want to ask you on this same children of schooling. What does stress lead to in children?
The stress leads to them being, first of all, loss of motivation. And they get withdrawn. They don't want to. Either they become aggressive or they become withdrawn. Or they just don't want to do anything, And a child who says is bored is a stressed child. No child is ever bored because they are full of life to do many things. So this is what is and then they start, resenting things. And some of them start regressing. For example, bedwetting starts at night. A child who's never had done, young children, will start going
so
into...
Is because of stress?
Yes, because they're not able to express and we don't understand, the parents don't understand, the teachers don't understand. We always say, oh, they're useless, they are not capable of doing. That's not true. We really have to see a child who is not as or she or he was, or you find symptoms which is changing. We really have to be very, very aware.
Even when with teenagers, they sometimes rebel. So that also is due to stress factor or is the communication gap?
No, the teenagers is because let us understand a teenager. A teenager is a highly intelligent person, but emotionally he or she is like a young child because the growth pattern is such that we become emotionally developed after our teenagers. At that time, they are a little rebellious. And second thing we have to understand with teenagers, the persons who matter most in their lives are their friends. Parents and everybody else is second. And while parents and teachers think academically they have to perform, the future have to be good, the children think that they have to be in with their friends, whether it is growing hair or wearing a ring or, going out, or they have to be, if they are not accepted by the peer group, the child feels extremely stressed out.
So and parents should keep this in mind.
Absolutely.
Teachers should keep this
in mind. That, and sometimes I have seen children with guys with long hair, but extremely bright, very happy, very nice. So we should not restrict this physical appearance a little bit and don't do this, don't talk to them, don't go this. That doesn't appeal to them, and then they rebel a lot. And of course, the highest, you must understand that the stress doesn't get built overnight. It's coming from very young. And children who are committing suicide or, which is, the rising problem in our, I think Bangalore is particularly vulnerable to this, is extreme degree of stress and misunderstood child.
Handle them with care, with sensitivity.
It's like a flower. You can crush it, you can bloom it. So,
yeah, that's a very interesting point you made. I think it's very interesting. And Dr. Nandini, are we facing more behavioral problems and less physical ailments in children compared to a few years ago?
Mr. Balram, how beautifully you have said this, because, with what we have advanced a lot is in physical medicine. Immunization. Today we have a vaccine for name the disease. Yes. So it's come down. Of course, little unaffordable by some, but even the government vaccine programs has brought down in the lower socioeconomic group also diseases which are very common. But behavioral is on the rise because of the transitional society we have and the stress of education, the reason to perform, and right from young age, working parents, and we don't have that kind of a attachment and anchor which is required for a child to guide them at a young age. No longer grandparents live with their parents. Actually, when I was in medical school, I was told that if you don't, parents are not so important as grandparents, because the love, unconditional love, is missing in children's lives these days, which is very important for them to grow. And then the pressure to perform, the competition,
yes, that is telling on
and it sucks them. And what is the facilities we have to counteract this in terms of recreation for the children, in terms of for them to outlet, other factors which it requires for them to grow up, is a big constraint for them.
Dr. Nandini,